Manitoba a buzz. The Winnipeg Jets win the showdown of the top two teams in the National Hockey League in a game in which Alexander Ovechkin scores 8-8-9. Which would you consider to be the page jumper?
Well, I think that there was more of a learning curve for the Winnipeg Jets last night than there was the story of Alex Ovechkin and his race to beat Wayne. Now, it was exciting to see it. I think people in Winnipeg, the 15,225 that showed up at Canada Life last night, they got the best of both worlds. They got to see history as Ovechkin gets closer to 894, and the Jets won. And the Jets played a really, really solid two-way game. It was physical. It was emotional. It was fast. Great goaltending at both ends. Hellebuck and Thompson were really good. And the Jets did it without Gabe Vilardi and Neil Pionk, which I think would probably be a little satisfying for the guys on the roster, knowing that they can play that style of game without two of their most important players. So my answer is, I think it's probably better for Winnipeg, but Washington, at the same time, as we know and we've seen all season long, is that they'll rebound. They've got Minnesota the next game, and they'll be just fine as they go towards the President's Trophy. They got a point out of it, Darren, and so the battle for the President's Trophy is down to a single point now, with the Jets winning and the Caps getting the overtime loss.
Psychologically, I think from the locker rooms, dressing rooms, Winnipeg.
See, that's good. You see, the dressing rooms are in Canada and the locker rooms are in the United States.
I have trouble with that sometimes. Yeah. I'll be on the air doing things and I'll say dressing rooms and the people just
it's like the difference between jerseys and sweaters, right?
Sweaters. I use sweaters all the time. I like using sweaters.
The secret trick to remember it's sweaters? And I was told this by an old-time trainer years ago. He says, John, don't call them jerseys, call them sweaters. I said, well, I forget sometimes. And he says, no, here's how you remember. I said, okay, how do you do that? Players sweat.
Oh.
Players sweat, so they wear sweaters. Oh, okay.
I'll put that in my brain.
Ever since then, I've always remembered that. That's kind of like my Nature's trick too, right?
Yeah, that is good. I use sweaters as a nod to my homeland when I'm doing a broadcast as a little. I work everything else in process, that kind of thing, against. But I do use sweaters consistently. Just as
me too.
As my little, hey, I'm still Canadian. I always will be Canadian. But when you talk about Winnipeg and they've had this fantastic season, to not perform well in that situation, just it would have put a little salt in that performance this year, and I was happy for them.
Oh no! It was. I tell you what, it was an edge of your seat game all night. It was a playoff style hockey game. It was as if both rosters acknowledged that this could be a preview. Now, I don't know it's about a long way away. What's that?
I think they were playing for respect in the league. Like, we want to be the top dog. Let's go. I think we're a long way from a preview. And how many people think that those two teams are going to meet in the final, or either one will get to the final? There's a lot of doubt about both.
No, there is, but I also think that there's doubt because they don't know the teams well enough. I really do. I certainly can say that about people not knowing how good Winnipeg is, because the Jets don't get respect outside of Manitoba. I'm not sure how much respect they get in the Central Division. I mean, case in point, Darren, all you had to do was look at trade deadline day and Jim Nill doing what he did and Chris McFarland doing what he did, and everybody said, well, there they are. They're the Stanley Cup contenders from the Central Division, forgetting all along that the Jets are ahead of them in the points. And now the Jets have really kind of reacted to that and done an amazing job. They are a complete hockey team right now. And they start with a complete hockey team because they have Connor Hellebuck, who's the best goaltender in the game. And Josh Morrissey, who I had hoped would receive a little more accolades during the Four Nations, deserves a ton of respect for being one of the top 6 defensemen in the National Hockey League. So there's lots of things that, and I know I do lots of work in Winnipeg, but those of us that have taken the time to watch the team play a lot, you go, holy smokes, this team is deep. This team is complete. They are fast. The whole discussion in Winnipeg this week is, what are we going to do without Gabe Vilardi? Kevin Cheveldayoff figured that out ages ago, and that's why they are one of the deepest teams in the game. The move of Alex Iafallo to the top line was an easy move. And then somebody can go in and last night it was Rasmus Kapari goes back into the lineup on the fourth line. There's tons of things that this team has done so well, and it's prepare themselves for events like injuries at inopportune times. The addition of Luke Schenn was a brilliant addition. It has changed the dynamic on the back end for the Jets. They're a much more physical team now, which they need to be for the playoffs. So that's why I think last night was, and maybe the preview was a little bit of a difficult word to use, but to me, it was both teams saying, you know what, we are the real deal. Washington has said it all season long. Spencer said it with us on Friday. And I think the Winnipeg Jets are the real deal as well.
Washington moves on to Minnesota, and then they get Buffalo before they move into April. He is at 8-8-9. Where's your gut feeling on Alexander Ovechkin?
Their last game's on the 17th of April?
Yeah. In Pittsburgh.
17th of April.
Okay.
And it's going to be Alex Ovechkin against Sidney Crosby. And somebody actually asked me the question yesterday, how hard will the Caps, if there's an empty net, the game, they're ahead or they're ahead in the game, how hard will the Caps on the ice get the puck to Ovechkin to score 8-9-5 against the Penguins on the 17th of April? And I said, almost as hard as Sidney will be there to stop him.
I think Sidney could win the Selke Trophy in one game. On that last game of the year.
Sidney should have won the Selke Trophy twice already. Sidney Crosby is hard to imagine. Sidney Crosby's underrated as a defensive forward. Underrated. I think we take him for granted.
The interesting thing about the Ovechkin race or chase is you can't look at this time of the year teams that are good, teams that are battling for a playoff position, teams that are out of it, like you do with a team going, oh, they should win this game. They should. They're going to be in tough in that game. This is as random of a prediction as you're going to get because you don't know which goaltender is necessarily going to play, and it doesn't really matter whether the team's good or bad.